Senator Meyer, for what purpose you rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to debate the conference report.
You have the floor.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to continue the conversation that Senator Chaudhary and Senator Jackson started and point out that North Carolinians need to know that this budget sets up a dangerous level of intrusive and dark government. No other state in the United States will have a legislative body with this level of untrammeled power to investigate your job, your company, or even, as was just agreed to by Senator Jackson, your personal life and enter into your personal home. And no other state will have such strong prohibitions against the public having access to legislative records. That is because this bill appears to make all of a legislator's records private and could result in all legislative records being destroyed without access to the public. This is not a codification of current practice. This is unprecedented new law. Meanwhile, a government body that no one in the public has likely ever heard of, the Joint Legislative Commission on Government Operations, is going to become some type of weird Gestapo secret police. We colloquially and somewhat dystopically call GovOps this group, and they'll have the ability to enter the building of any government agency, contractor, or subcontractor, including a private home. This partisan body will be able to demand documents and access to computer systems, including, as Senator Chaudhary just asked, computer systems that are used by law enforcement. And whomever the legislative secret police contact to make these demands, even if it's the lowest level state employee or a private citizen working for a government subcontractor, is compelled by this law to keep the GovOps entrance into their building, document request, and in fact their entire interaction completely confidential. We do not need a legislative spy agency. The provisions in this law are so broadly written as to raise innumerable questions, and it is easy to get into scary hypotheticals because there are no guardrails in the law for this new Gestapo GovOps. Here are some questions. Can they invade your home or business? Can they obtain personal or proprietary information from your company? Can they disclose that information at a public hearing? Can they turn it over to a legislator who, under this public records law, could then sell that information? Refusal to comply is punishable by a dismissal or a Class 2 misdemeanor. How is that enacted? Can legislative staff petition a magistrate to issue a misdemeanor? What if the refusal to comply comes from a constitutional officer, such as the Attorney General or the Treasurer? What's the punishment for them? Can GovOps of the minority party use these powers to investigate GovOps of the majority party? Can GovOps demand documents from your legislative assistant legislators, who would then be forbidden from telling you that they had been asked for these documents? What at all is there to stop the legislative secret police from pursuing any type of partisan vendetta? Consider these scenarios. Women receiving abortions in North Carolina must provide an ultrasound to the Department of Health and Human Services. They do not have identifying information attached and therefore may not be subject to HIPAA provisions. GovOps could secretly obtain these ultrasounds from a DHHS staff employee and then release them to the public in a hearing. Companies hoping to pursue growth plans in North Carolina may completely avoid our state if they believe that our legislative GovOps Gestapo will be digging into their private information or walking into their doors to demand access to their computer systems at any moment. This does not reflect a democratic body caring for the public that elects us. The advent of this type of secret policing feels more like opening the door of authoritarianism. It should scare us all. Meanwhile, the secret legislative police bind people to silence. While they bind people to silence, this bill simultaneously allows legislators to hide from the traditional disinfectant of government corruption, the sunlight of public records access. When enacted, North Carolina will be one of the least transparent of any state in the country. Public access to legislative documents will be limited to only the documents that any legislator or the legislative majority decide to release, which is to say that there will be no public access at all because voluntary access is not public access. We, legislators, would have the ability to destroy every single email we write if we want to. As a side note, I'll point out that we are already one of only 2 legislative bodies that does not have broadcast video of our sessions already. Further, legislators would become the sole owner of our records and be given the explicit ability to sell our records. Apparently, the response to rampant rumors of public corruption and backroom dealing in an attempt to legalize casino gambling in North Carolina is to mask any public trail of such. But to allow legislators to get rich through the brand new opportunity to sell our records, yes, someone who wants to promise confidentiality to a shady casino operator or anyone else could put that into writing as part of a contract to sell the records to that shady casino operator, whoever it is, that they want to protect. There has never before been an exclusion of our communications with constituents or the public from public records law. And finally, a simple line that you may have missed on page 530, line 20, eliminates any public record of redistricting. As you may remember, in the last round of redistricting, secret concept maps were developed, not disclosed to the public, and destroyed. That was part of how the Republican majority used illegal information to gerrymander. No court has ever overturned that finding. The only reason to hide redistricting records from the public is if you are breaking federal law, including the targeting of black voters who have been persistently targeted in the state. If there are racial gerrymandering claims to be made, this type of evidence is crucial to the court's process. Retaining redistricting records is no true burden. There was never a complaint in that set of hearings about this discovery process that it may have been overburdensome or intrusive. In fact, members of the majority party here said that you wanted that process to be as open and transparent as possible. There is no compelling reason for redistricting records to be hidden from the public. In fact, if you believe that deliberative legislative process does require some confidentiality, redistricting should be held to a higher standard of transparency because you cannot find another reason to hide redistricting information from the public other than suppressing their votes. I will conclude with one final hypothetical that I think everyone should consider that ties together the intrusiveness of the GovOps Gestapo secret police with the ability of legislators to maintain our own records and do what we choose with them. Let's say that GovOps legislative staff get confidential information from an economic development project, and without knowledge of the companies involved because of the confidentiality clauses granted in the law, or anyone else for that matter having knowledge that they get this confidential information from the economic development project, they turn over what they have to a legislator who has the discretion legally to decide whether to make those records public or not. Given the provisions in this law, that legislator would legally be able to sell those documents to whom? A competing company? A foreign government? And for what purpose? I consider you all to take these provisions very seriously.